this incident that you mentioned there, this hospital in Gaza yesterday, once again, the BBC has found itself in hot water over its reporting of the conflict. They jumped the gun, for want of a better phrase, and immediately blamed Israel for the explosion, despite both Hamas and the Israelis denying responsibility. Let's just have a little look and a listen.
It is hard to see what else this could be, really, given the size of the explosion, other than an Israeli airstrike or several airstrikes.
You know, Nigel, I was watching Al Jazeera, believe it or not, live when this happened, right? And they had a camera in the foyer of the hospital, and I'm not joking now, they were dragging bodies in front of the camera. This is all on live television, no censoring, nothing, checking for pulses, shouting about Israel, all of this stuff. You know, you might expect that from Al Jazeera, but you wouldn't expect this kind of thing from the BBC, or would you?
The BBC have got themselves really into a terrible mess over all of this since the 7th of October. Their true prejudices have come out. And amazingly, John Simpson, regarded as one of the great BBC veterans, even he puts out messages saying it's not for the BBC to take sides, which of course is why they won't say that Hamas are a terrorist organisation, even though they're prescribed by the British government. And I think this has done the BBC simply the most enormous damage, though fair to say Sky News are equally in the same boat. Our national broadcaster, and actually those three letters BBC around the world, have represented something quite great about our country over the last century, but they are now in very, very serious decline and looking deeply partisan.
I've got a statement for the BBC. I'll read that in a second. But before I do that, Nigel, some of the latest opinion polling I found quite startling, actually, which is that there are, certainly when you break it down by age, there are a lot of people who say they don't know what side they're on in Britain when it comes to Israel and Hamas, really. Israel and that terror group, Hamas. Are you concerned about what that actually means for Britain at the moment?
I'm not that concerned that a large number of people don't know, because the history of this region is deeply complicated. And, we hear about the Golan Heights and we hear about the West Bank. And it's why the first Monday I was on after the 7th of October attacks, I put a big map up on the wall to try and point to people where these places were. If you don't know, if you don't understand it, it's better not to say. What I think is more alarming are the number of people who genuinely believe that Israel is occupying Gaza. They withdrew from their donkeys years ago, and yet through the education system, through the university system, through the all-pervasive left, who of course loathe Israel with a passion, we have a lot of young people who have been seriously misguided. So support for the sovereign state of Israel is probably weaker now in the UK than it's been at any point since 1948.
I think it's interesting. We started, didn't we, about talking about Joe Biden's use of kind of football language. It came from the other team. Depressingly, I think that the younger generation view Israel and Gaza, Israel-Palestine, Israel-Hamas, really, as some kind of football match. And they take sides. They pick a team, regardless of the facts, which actually do matter when it comes to all of this. Nigel, thank you very much for your time. As ever, always an absolute pleasure. Great stuff. I'm going to go to that BBC statement now because the spokesperson said this: "We reject these claims about our coverage. Anyone watching, listening to, or reading it can see that we have set out both sides' competing claims about the attack." This is about the hospital attack, by the way. "Clearly showing who is saying them and what we do or don't know." One of the main problems when it comes to the BBC's coverage is that when you read things like Palestine's health ministry, and they are quoted, that's Hamas, right? So Hamas is in charge of Gaza. So when they quote things like, the health ministry has said this, I mean, that is, some would argue, terrorist propaganda. So when the BBC write a headline that says, an Israeli missile strike has killed 500 at a hospital in Gaza, says Palestine's health ministry, you do have to take that with a pinch of salt, don't you?